The Garner family was a precious family where there wasn't any problem at all. The parents loved each other. The father was Brian and the mother was Emily, and they had an amorous personality. The childs were good kids. Lucas, the oldest brother, always played with his toys. On the other side, his little sister, Regina, was serious, but she had fun with Lucas. They were cared for the baby sister Crystal, who was too professional, and the kids loved her. At the end, there was a driver named Bruno. However, these happenings won't last forever. One day, there was too much tension on the family, especially in the parents and the nanny. The reason was that Crystal had a romance with Brian, and the only people that knew this was the three of them. Apparently, this incident was forgotten by them, but since then there began an invincible but remarkable rivalry between Emily and Crystal. This rivalry started with simple acts where Emily was closer to the kids and Crystal just took care of the lunch for the kids. This act continued for 2 months until there was a huge fight between the mother and the nanny. They were outside so no one could really hear about what they were saying. Just the driver that was near could hear Emily scream, "You don't deserve to be on his side." This event made Bruno get confused, but he didn't really care about it. On the next day, he figured out that Crystal was absent, so he thought that she was dismissed by Emily, until something weird happened. There was a cop patrol on the yard, and one cop was talking with Emily about the reason that Crystal disappeared, and that the last place that they saw her was in the Garner's house.
The driver Bruno and Emily had gone shopping to decorate the house for Halloween. They lasted around 2 hours in the mall. While the mother was away, Brian was taking care of the children because the babysitter hadn't arrived. Suddenly, Emily and the driver arrived at the house. Emily started a little argument with her husband about why the nanny hadn't arrived. Brian asked a question regarding if Crystal had been fired, to which Emily suspiciously responded, "No, I don't know why she didn't show up today." In the course of this little discussion, Bruno, the driver, went to get the decoration from the car. On the way to the car, Bruno noticed a red puddle coming out of a small room where some cleaning tools were kept. Bruno presses carefully to find out what it was. He opens the door and finds something that leaves him in shock. He heard Brian coming and quickly closed the door and cleans the red puddle. Brian wondered what he had, but since he was late for work, he let it pass and he left. The driver reopened the door of the cleaning room, and in that moment, the nanny's body falls. The driver was scared again and couldn't believe it, but because he was very loyal to the family and didn't want the family to have problems at all, he hid the body. After hiding it, the driver continues normally to get the purchase without asking questions and without raising suspicions. At the moment that the trunk was closing, he found a black bag and wanted to move it, but it was very heavy, so he opened it and saw that it was a hammer full of blood. This hammer also he hid it.
The Garner family was a precious family where there wasn't any problem at all. The parents loved each other. The father was Brian and the mother was Emily, and they had an amorous personality. The childs were good kids. Lucas, the oldest brother, always played with his toys. On the other side, his little sister, Regina, was serious, but she had fun with Lucas. They were cared for the baby sister Crystal, who was too professional, and the kids loved her. At the end, there was a driver named Bruno. However, these happenings won't last forever.
The mother was angry that she had been taking care of the children for 5 hours, but she wasn't paying attention to them. Lucas, the older brother, got tired of his mother ignoring them, so he called the nanny. Lucas dialed and dialed, but no one answered, until he realized that the phone was being heard inside the house. Lucas found the phone and started to get scared because it was broke and with some blood. But without raising suspicion and all scared, he started looking for the nanny throughout the house. He found a black bag that was behind some plants. He opened it a little and saw the face of the nanny, to which he shouted a lot, but it immediately shut up. He rushed to the kitchen to grab the house phone and dial the police and tell them what he had seen.
As soon as the police received the call, they head to the house to examine the crime scene and start the investigation. They ask the parents if they have any suspicions of what could have happened, but neither of them responds with coherent answers, and they seem a bit nervous. They even invent that the nanny never gave them good vibes and that it seemed that she was going through bad steps in her life. During the investigation, they finally find the murder weapon along other items that apparently Brian had recently bought, such as a shovel, strong cleaning chemicals, bags, among other things, which is why Brian now became the main suspect. Now the police are interrogating Brian, but he denies all the accusations, saying that he always had a certain affection and some pity for the nanny, for which it was impossible for him to do any harm to her. But the police find it weird because he mentioned that he never liked the nanny until the time he is being interrogated. So they begin to interrogate the driver, who refuses to speak even a little. He is terrified and totally serious because he doesn't want anything to happen to the family. But the police need answers, and they threaten him that he will go to jail for being complicit in such a serious case if he don't give them the information they need. After hours of creating more tension in the driver by the police, he finally confesses. Between tears and screams, Bruno confesses that it was Emily who killed Crystal. He tells them how he found the body and that he even had to hide it himself so that nothing will happen to the family, despite the fact that he loved Crystal. That was enough for the police to go straight to arrest Emily and Brian, both accused of Crystal's murder.